So what happened to me at my last editing job was I was hired by someone who immediately quit. And then I was taken under the wing of the big manager. He gave me some very brief training and then he got fired. I met my boss, who was awesome. And we totally hit it off. The first time we had a meeting, there was like a guitar and a ukulele on the wall behind him. So we were instant friends. I had to, we had to compare notes about the music we play. And we're same age, both Gen X, bonding over that. And then he lost his job. A new manager came in, and some of the team were not happy with what I had been trained on. They had moved on from that style, but they never told me. So I was, and I lost my job because of that. So, just a weird little vignette about the corporate world.
Right.
If you're looking for someone to work on your fiction, I think you need to people and kind of get a feel for how they're going to react to your work. Maybe show them a little bit of your work. One of the things I do if I'm going to edit something, if I'm auditioning for a job, basically, no matter what kind, is I will get a 5 pages, 4 pages, and I'll say, let me show you what I would do with this material. So that person would hand you their work or 4 pages of it, and you would turn it back over to them after you look through it. Some of it is content, maybe a question like, what is this referring to? Don't you need to write this out? Is this chapter 2, or do we all know what this acronym means, or, whatever. Plus the grammar, spelling, punctuation, things like that. So I think the audition process is important because that way both sides know what they're getting. Now, I've seen this abused in the Upwork scene. I've literally met people who are like, "Oh, would you I'm looking for an editor. Would you do this, chapter of my book?" It turns out it's not a very long book, and she's probably asking 10 people to do 10 different chapters, and she's probably not going to pick one. So, you have to, take that with a grain of salt. But
sure.
But that's kind
of the things not to do. Have 10 different people edit 10 different chapters so that they're all like,
God, oh my God, what a nightmare.
Asking me to do more work, and finally I told her I had another job even though I didn't. It's just like, oh dear, I can't help you anymore. Good luck.
Right. Well, I'm glad you mentioned that. That actually reminded me when I was looking, because it's been so long now, but I remember there was, quite a few people would do like a few pages, right? And I didn't ask. It was, if Dario said he would do 3 pages, I'd have him do 3 pages. And I remember there was one gentleman that was a story. And Dario, you'll know this one. The one of the book I'm currently writing now is it's the first chapter to it. It's called Teeth, and it's 1,000 words. It's the guy's kind of just vengeance personified, right? He's just very mad. He's very emotional. And so it's very clipped. It's very straightforward, or just heartbroken and just through, right? And then so he's adding that, and I'm like, and so he did it for like a page, and then he's like, oh, I'm also a ghostwriter if you need some ghostwriting. And I'm like, none of this works. I don't need you to ghostwrite. Like I just wouldn't write anything if I needed a ghostwriter. Like that's silliness. For me, right? I'm not a celebrity, right? I'm not my celebrity memoir here. Like, and then it was just what he did. I was like, oh, okay, no, this guy is a no-go. So I think sometimes that does help getting a few pages and then kind of seeing what they think, getting some questions. So I think that kind of audition is an important step. So, sorry, did you start to say something, or you want to take it from there?
Sure. My problem is not giving a 2-hour lecture on this topic. Gabi used the word fit, I think, and fit is critical both ways for the writer and the editor. So the first thing I'm going to say is since it's so damn difficult to make any kind of a living, even beer money as a writer, maybe one writer out of every two or three is now selling themselves as an editor, and many of them are not necessarily very skilled at it. You really need, the fit needs to be good in every way. It needs to be a genre or category that the editor reads and knows the rules of. They need to be good at their craft. They need to have a connection with the author. I do a 2,500 word free sample, and I insist on seeing the whole manuscript. I'll only do the sample on the beginning. And I insist on seeing the whole manuscript because I want to get an idea of how consistent the self-editing and revision is throughout the manuscript. Often people have super polished the first 2 or 3 chapters and then the rest is junk. So that matters when it comes to pricing. I think you should get a free sample with your editor. If possible, you should talk to them on the phone or have a Zoom call once you see if the sample works for you. And I turned down a fair number of jobs. If the person is someone who really isn't when you're working with indies a lot, which I do, I do have the occasional trad pub writer who comes to me for a pre-edit because, as you said, a lot of publishers, even some of the big ones, won't give you good copy editing anymore. I have some traditionally published authors who come to me for copy editing before they sell a book to the publisher. But with indies especially, some of them just aren't ready for editing. They think they're ready, but they're not there. And I'm not going to just take someone's money if their work is, I'm going to be harsh here, if their work is trash or is really just not ready for an audience. I might give them some feedback. So I think that's really important. I think you have to have integrity. You have to be honest with the person. I think another problem with a lot of editors is that they don't deliver on time. Graphic artists are even worse on this. People are flaky. And I've got a ton of testimonials on my site for that reason. Every other author I do a job for, I try and get a testimonial, because to me, when someone is paying you good money to do a job, they deserve a very good job. They deserve your best. And you don't promise them dates you can't hold up to. You don't let your personal life get in the way of delivering a job. And the biggest complaints I hear, I've had clients come to me who have been to 3 other editors, who have been to people that charge more than I do. And I'm kind of in the middle of the industry price range. And the complaints I hear most often are, they flaked, they didn't deliver on time, they really didn't give me a very good editor. It's a minefield. One of the things I will say, because I'm assuming a lot of your viewers here are thinking of hiring an editor, I'll say 2 things. One, everyone needs editing. Even the best manuscripts I get, I can usually find 8 to 10 errors per page. And I've spoken to other professionals, and that's pretty much a good metric, So granted, a lot of them are commas or capitalization errors, but readers only put up with so much, and
Sure.
and there are a lot of books,
and that's a lot when you add it up, right?
Like, oh my God, 1,500
over 300 pages or whatever it might be.
1,500, 2,000 track changes and maybe 100 comments, which are actionable items, are about average for me. Readers going to put down a book at a certain point if it's too bad. Readers they love indie. They don't mind. They don't care if you're an indie or trad pub author, but they want some quality. So you can't self-edit. There are a lot of books on it. There's a lot of websites on it. You can do some things, but you're too close to your own material. And anyone who says you can really self-edit well is
oh, sure.
really
Well, I told the story of that quotation mark facing the wrong way.
Oh yeah, that's perfect. Yeah,
and you can. I think when I send them to you, it's usually pretty like as clean as it can be, right? I think you can disagree with me. I think you've told me that usually they come when I send it to you. It's usually a pretty as good as I can get it, right? It's usually not like quotation marks everywhere like slop, but it's no matter what you're doing, it's hard, and you can go backwards, forwards, whatever way you want. It's still your work. You still start to read it and know what it's meant to say there. Your brain kind of knows where it's going, and fills in those things that might be wrong.
Well, and you won't miss the logic.
I'm sorry, Gaby, you didn't come through, Gaby.
I said your brain fills in words that aren't there.
Absolutely. Yeah,
right.
All the time I'll find no the there, right?
Yeah, you don't see it.
Well, also you won't notice the logical holes and the plot errors and things like that. You won't notice if you're giving too much or too little information. Information management is huge, especially in science fiction and fantasy. All those things need an outside reader, and they'd better be good. So, your editing is, Bill, you mentioned earlier on that you thought it was a difficult thing to do. I once had a client offer to edit, a good client who I'd worked with a lot, offered to edit a job for a friend of his, and he sent me an email a few weeks after saying that was the hardest thing I've ever done. You've got to kind of float along a lot of levels, depending what kind of editing you're doing. There's people talk about copy editing, developmental editing, line editing. I mean, there are differences, but there's also a lot of overlap. So, I'm looking for reversed quotation marks and punctuation errors are probably 30% of the corrections. But I'm also looking for characters, eye color changing, their setting changing for logical plot errors, things that you can't do. The best manuscript I ever worked with in terms of errors was from a professional who was a science fiction writer, but also wrote mysteries. He was very, very good. And this book, in 70 or 80,000 words, I only came up with a few score edits, 20 or 30 track changes. But at the end of it, there was a complete doozy. At the end of it, at the climax, the hero who had to disarm a villain grabs the villain's gun, but he's already got two things in his hands. And that's just classic, he didn't see it. He didn't see it. I earned my fee right there.
Right, amen.